Mark Andrews signs an extension with the Baltimore Ravens. This is Sam Njoku, host of the Ravens Talk podcast. We'll touch on what that means for this Ravens team moving forward.
I'm Kadri Ismail, Super Bowl champion, former Baltimore Ravens receiver, and I will say this. What does the signing mean as far as this upcoming Sunday's matchup against the Steelers?
And I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. And not only for this Sunday, but could this signing maybe mean more signings are on the way for this Baltimore Ravens team? We'll talk about that and so much more coming up on the Locked On Ravens Squad show.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. This is Sam Njoku, joined as always with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail. The Ravens are getting set for a huge matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's been all the talk in the city of Baltimore as the Ravens get prepped for what many consider it to be a playoff game, with the chance to get sole possession of first place in the AFC North. But within all of that, the Ravens make a huge signing. An extension is done for Mr. Mark Andrews, tight end, who just eclipsed the record for most receiving yards in the franchise's history. He gets inked to a new deal. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the practice on Wednesday as the Ravens get healthy, finally. Healthier. Lamar Jackson practices. A lot of other guys who we thought would maybe miss some time comes back. We'll touch on that. And then, of course, we'll touch about the Ravens and Steelers, the black and gold, going up against the purple and black in Baltimore. Again, we talked about it, first place in the AFC North on the line. I want to make you guys aware that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Kevin, you heard the news. I'm sure you're aware of it. The Ravens signed Mark Andrews to an extension, something that we didn't even conceive to be a possibility considering how things went for this team at the end of last season. What are your thoughts about Mark Andrews signing that 3-year extension with the Ravens?
Yeah, am I aware of it? I did a whole stream on it like an hour ago. So I have heard the news. Certainly big and certainly shocking, in my opinion. I know that some people don't view it as shocking. Other people do. But for me, I was pretty sure it was going to be likely the whole way for the Ravens. Now, I will say that as the year has progressed, I went from like 100% likely over Andrews to like there's maybe a chance that the Ravens do end up going with Andrews over likely. But look, I don't want to take away from what Mark Andrews has done over the course of his career in the regular season. Obviously, he's been an incredible Raven, franchise leader, and someone that has stepped up to the plate in the regular season when it's mattered. But obviously the thing with Andrews is in the postseason, he has not performed up to standard with the drop against Buffalo and other moments where he hasn't shown up there. But, you know, I don't want that to overshadow that he still is, in my opinion, a top 5 tight end in the NFL. I think the Ravens have 2 top 10 tight ends, despite the year that Likely has had. I think Likely has lost himself some money this season, but I also think that depending on what he was asking for, maybe the Ravens just didn't view it within their best interest. But, you know, you have a 25-year-old player here that I don't think has reached the peak of his powers and has a lot of potential. And this has been a weird year. I mean, Hugh, I know we talk about it all the time about like guys coming back from injury and needing time to feel like themselves and foot injuries and whatnot. So I wonder if that's been one of the things that has been holding Likely back. Not to mention he came back and all of a sudden, hey, here's Cooper Rush for 2 games. So that also didn't necessarily help him as well. But it's tough knowing that Likely is probably not going to be in Baltimore next season. And something that you guys both were like, Kevin, don't even say that. And Q, I'm going to talk about it because you didn't let me talk about the offseason this morning. I have said for Isaiah Likely, man, what if he goes to Cincinnati? And you said, Kevin, don't even say that. Or what if he goes to Kansas City? Kevin, don't even say. Well, now those possibilities appear a lot more likely with this Isaiah Likely non-extension, then giving it to Mark Andrews. So again, like I graded it out as a C on the stream I did an hour ago. I think that again, like Andrews still can help this team. He is 30 years old. By the end of this deal, he'll be 33. So you have to wonder about the contract and how it's going to play out and if there will be any decline for Mark Andrews. It is noted, I went over this on the show, Travis Kelce had some of his best seasons during his age 31 season, age 33 season. But I just think it's the potential that Likely has versus kind of like, we know that Andrews can be a great player for them. The yardage hasn't been there for him, but I also mentioned this too. I'm curious if Lamar Jackson had any input on this, where if he was asked, hey, do you want Mark back next season? Or, hey, who would you choose between Mark and Isaiah? And if Lamar did favor Mark in that equation, I'm not shocked. We know the chemistry those guys have. And again, Lamar is not like the be all end all in the front office. Lamar doesn't like sit down in Eric DeCosta's chair and call up agents and make moves. But I do think there is a collaborative effort between Lamar, the front office, and the coaching staff. And I'd be curious to know if there was anything like that in this situation.
Woo! We are here at this point. Kevin is gloating right now because we're talking about offseason in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
It's tough on me right now. Sam, I'm having a moment. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's, just needling it in there on me, making it hard and difficult. I think it is good that he got a bag again. He's deserving of it with the career that he has had, the resume that he has had regarding the leadership, the competitiveness, the showing up, the consistency, all those things. When the fan base or others will look at the scope, and I'm pinching my fingers together to say small piece of the bigger picture is this, that yes, he's had his moments where he has dropped the 2-point conversion, dropped pass earlier in the game, had a strip early in the game against the Buffalo Bills, didn't really show up in the AFC Championship game the year prior. Obviously, he has had, some injuries. But I think the bigger picture is that when he's out there and he's healthy, Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews. And he might have, maybe the extension would have been larger. Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound type of.
Oh, you
came to the Bills.
You're good. You're back. You're back. You're back.
Man, I'm sitting here riffing, but I was saying that for Mark Andrews, it is one of those scenarios where if he did not play as well as he played, and if he could have played better in the playoffs, he might have gotten even a greater extension for himself. This, though, signs, I believe, the ending of Isaiah Likely's tenure here in Baltimore. Might be a slither of hope, but I just don't see them signing both guys back. Plus, you got Charlie Kolar in the wings as well. I think it'll be Mark Andrews, Charlie Kolar, more than it will be Isaiah Likely and what you have with Mark Andrews and his extension.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of fans are a little upset about it. They see the potential of Isaiah Likely, but it's really about the contract. And I took a look and saw what at least the numbers were for 2025 in regards to the tag for a tight end. Right now, for a non-exclusive tag, it was $14.2 million. A transition tag was $12 million. So maybe there's a sliver of hope, a chance that they potentially tag Isaiah Likely and try and get maybe something for besides the compensation pick that they'd get for a team that would re-sign him. But I'm thinking that I'm with you, Q. I think this might be the end of Isaiah Likely. Kevin, do you agree with that? Do you think Isaiah Likely's time in Baltimore is done with this signing, or do you still hold on to the hope that potentially he'll be back here for at least 1 or 2 more seasons as that contract with Mark Andrews runs out once again?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that he's probably gone. And honestly, like, so even if they do franchise tag him, and this is something I brought up, I mean, again, depending on how much he was asking for, I mean, if he was asking for like $20 million a season, like obviously you can't pay him that. That'd reset the entire market. And especially with the year he's had, he hasn't done anything to necessarily this season earn that. But if I'm Likely, it's not necessarily about if the Ravens wanted Likely. I mean, they chose Andrews over him at this point, and maybe that was because of the contract demands he was making. I'm not sure. But at this point, with Andrews being locked in long term, if I'm Isaiah Likely, I don't want to go back to Baltimore because I want to go to a place, if I'm Isaiah Likely, where I can flourish as a number one option. And that there was an opportunity for that in Baltimore before this extension with Mark Andrews, but they didn't sign Mark Andrews to a 3-year, nearly $40 million deal just to be a backup and not play. Like he's the guy. That's what they have made clear here. So if I'm Isaiah Likely, I want to go to a place where, I can take on that role. I mean, it's a little bit like Hayden Hurst just without the trade. It's like, Mark Andrews is one out here in these tight end rooms where it's Andrews versus Hurst and Andrews wins. Andrews versus Likely. Andrews, I believe, has won this one as well. So I'm not saying there's a 0% chance Likely comes back because, again, we've seen crazy things happen, but it reminds me of Roquan and Patrick Queen, where you always knew you were only going to be able to keep one of those guys at a position. And, tight end is a non-premium position here. So you need other areas to go out there. And I just think regardless of whether Likely comes back or not, you're going to lose somebody. Like there's no potential that you can bring back Andrews and also bring back Likely, then also bring back Linderbaum and also bring back Jones and also bring back Uzi. Like, you're getting, and then Flowers, what's that extension going to look like? There are going to be guys you just can't keep because that's what happens when, you have a lot of these guys on rookie contracts that are all coming up at the same time. Jordan Stoud's about to make $100 million too. So, I mean, you got to re-sign everybody, and it's not possible, unfortunately. And that's what happened when, years ago, they let Judon walk, they let Zadarius Smith walk. I'm shocked they let both of them walk. I thought they're going to at least bring back one of them, but you can't keep everybody. And in this situation, it's about weighing the present and the future. And while I think everybody can agree Likely is the best future long-term option that was out there between Andrews and Likely, whether it's money or whatever it was, Andrews can still contribute to them. But I just know that if Likely goes somewhere else and starts balling out and, shows that potential, Likely had his best game of the season last week outside of the fumble. Obviously, that was terrible. But we saw some of those big plays that we've been waiting to see from him all season. So I'm curious, guys. And you mentioned it with what's it going to mean for this Sunday? Are we about to see a little Isaiah Likely audition tour for his next team over these last month of the season in a contract year where he starts balling out a little bit more and earns himself that money back? We'll see. But if I had to guess right now, I would probably say Likely goes, and that's pretty unfortunate.
Isn't it interesting when we say he'll be balling out, but the balling out has to be on the same page with Lamar? I think that he's had his difficulties getting on the same page with Lamar. Obviously, the fumble was the fumble, but there were some other plays where they just haven't been on the same page and they haven't really been in sync like we've seen in prior years. So great point by you, KO, when it comes to the salary cap and just the reality of it all as far as franchising, a potential franchise tag on Isaiah when you already got another guy and you got another young guy in Charlie Kolar. Not saying that Charlie Kolar is not going to be like, hey, I'm just going to blindly follow the Ravens. No, he's going to go out there. He's going to test the market as well. But it also could be a situation where they feel there might be a strong tight end rookie class or, other free agents might be able to be wooed over to the Ravens. We just, don't know the thinking of the fuller picture for this group, but we do know that it is highly improbable that we'll be seeing Isaiah Likely back in a Ravens uniform.
Highly improbable indeed. It's unfortunate, but it is part of the game, unfortunately, as it relates to the front office. Mark Andrews gets that 3-year extension. Crazy considering that we thought that this guy was going to get traded in the offseason. In fact, I was one of the main proponents of that, saying that, he's getting some talks here, but the compensation was never there for the Ravens in regards to getting Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews showed up this season and Likely didn't, and he gets that extension. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk more about this because it does need to have some more discussion in regards to what this means for the Ravens moving forward, as well as what's happening this season with Isaiah Likely. Is this going to be the next 5 weeks a coming out party for Isaiah Likely in regards to what he needs to do to make sure that he gets that cheddar, that money for his pockets. We'll certainly talk about this next here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. All right, this episode, we're going to talk about FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Right now, the Ravens are 5.5-point favorites against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the under at 43.5. So if you think this is going to be another defensive outing between the Ravens and the Steelers, you may want to look at the under there. And of course, if you think the Ravens are going to win by more than 3 points, something that they haven't done very often, maybe want to take a look at that 5.5 spread and knock that down. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. What's going on, Ravens flock? We're back here with another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Ravens just got finished dealing with the loss less than 7 days ago against the Cincinnati Bengals. All eyes forward as they look to take sole possession of first place in the AFC North. A little trickling effect. Something happened between now and that contest, and that is the signing of Mark Andrews. That extension is rippling throughout the NFL. I'm getting mentions across my social media about him being the next Kansas City Chief or the next Jacksonville Jaguar, whatever the case may be. Isaiah Likely he's a hot commodity this season, I'm sure, with these next 5 games that are coming. So lots of fans outside of Baltimore will be looking at Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and not just fans, but front office personnel, coaches. Everyone's going to be taking a look at Isaiah Likely in this next 5 games. Up first, the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are your thoughts, Q? I'll start with you in regards to Isaiah Likely. He hasn't shown much. This has been a contract year for Isaiah Likely all season long. He has been a little disappointing. Of course, he's not the primary tight end target here, but do you expect him to put some more juice in his game, considering that he has 5 weeks to show someone out there that he's worth the money he's seeking?
You know, it's interesting. When we were talking going into the year, we were saying how, with him going down, don't rush the injury, don't rush coming back from the injury to prove yourself. And towards the end of the year, which of course we were, looking at this team maybe only having 4 losses total, as opposed to 6, and you're sitting there like, oh my God, they're 500. But we were looking at it as he was going to come back and ascend and really put even more pressure on an opposing team's defense because of his special talents. He does have this uncanny ability to make guys miss. He's extremely hard to bring down. He has a great catch radius. His ability to run routes is whether it be a linebacker, whether it be a safety, second to none. He does some remarkable things to get himself open and available. So with that said, the injury occurred. The team, tanked early in the year. He comes back, and like life is life. Lamar gets hurt. Cooper Rush just wasn't it. You can see where there were times he was open, and I was like, my God, he must feel so frustrated trying to get on the same page with Cooper Rush, because Cooper that's just not his game. Whereas when Tyler Huntley came in the Chicago game, he was like, all right, bet, we getting you the ball. I think that, Lamar's game, it's just, it's solid and strong, but he's going through a bad stretch right now. So it's bad timing that Lamar's going through a bad stretch. You're kind of contributing to it. You had to drop pass. Was it just 1 or 2 in the Vikings game? Obviously, you had, this Cincinnati game where you were kind of like starting to do some things, didn't really, make plays happen for yourself with the fumble. Jets game, you had some opportunities, overthrows or whatever it might have been in that regards as well. Like I said, Lamar is having his struggles, and so it's a trickle-down effect just because of the way you're a receiver. You got to get the ball from your quarterback, and if your quarterback ain't playing well, your numbers aren't going to look good either. All that being said, these next few games are going to dictate everything as far as any level of leverage for coming up free agency. What I mean by that is that when other teams look at you, they're not privy to what's going on the inside of the locker room, and your agent can, you know, talk all he wants and say, well, this is what my guy's like and all the other things. But the reality is what have you done? We're going to look at your numbers. We're going to look at the video. We're going to see what it looks like. And they kind of just make their, numbers decision from there. Is he a guy? Because you even mentioned Jacksonville. Well, Jacksonville has the one tight end Strange, and he was hurt, but he came back and right away he's made himself available. He scores a touchdown. So, leverage wise, okay, well, he's their go-to guy. You talk about, Travis Kelce. Well, they got another young guy in their system as well. It's funny. I know a lot about these tight ends all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy dynamic the way Isaiah will be positioned going into this offseason. And yes, he can absolutely help himself out by having a clutch catch or 20.
Yeah. And I like the point you made there, Q, because again, everybody's injury is different. Everybody's return and recovery and, path is different back. But, Likely's been back for a little while now. And I hope that he can be able to find himself. Like, I hope that Bengals game was the start. Like, I truly do. I hope it was outside of the fumble. I think Isaiah's been a little loosey-goosey with the ball at times over the course of his career and kind of all came to a head against the Bengals on Thursday night. But, we know how talented of a player he is. And, it would shock me if like this season that Isaiah Likely's having is who Isaiah Likely is, because we've seen him make plays in the past. We've seen him be that guy for Lamar, on some of those. It's so funny because like all those plays, well, not all of them, but a lot of those plays where like Lamar does his Lamar magic and scrambles around and rolls around. Like at first it was Andrews, like that Cleveland game, he had the one, the Bengals, but now Likely, like that one in Jacksonville a couple of years ago, obviously the one in Cincinnati where Lamar stiff armed Sam Hubbard down. Zay also has been on the receiving end of a lot of those, but you see the chemistry continuing to grow with Lamar. So I do hope that we're able to see a lot of Isaiah down the stretch here, because even if he's not back in Baltimore next season, well, he's still here now. He's not a free agent right now. I'll lean into Q's, not looking ahead. We're looking at the now. It's Isaiah Likely. He's a part of the team right now. We don't have to look at the offseason until the offseason. That feels really weird of me to say. It's usually Q's line, but I'll say it.
I'm rubbing off on you. I'm rubbing off on you.
I know you're influencing me. I'm telling you, but I'm gonna enjoy these three together while they're still on the team, because I think everybody again knew that it wasn't realistic they were going to bring back every single one of them. And so I asked a question on my stream that I did earlier about Isaiah Likely or Andrews and Kohler. And I think that was probably the path where, depending on how much money Likely is asking for, and I'm curious to see the deal that he gets, whether it's in Baltimore or elsewhere, what's the deal now with Kohler? Because Kohler is a guy that I think has made himself money for sure. So is that deal going to look a little bit different now? And is Andrews, did they essentially say, look, we value having two of these guys back over one, and Likely is asking for too much for one guy? Or is the maybe Andrews makes $2 to $3 million per season less than Likely does over the course of Likely's new deal? Do they use that to sign Linderbaum or Travis Jones or give Flowers an extension or, whatever it may be? So Baltimore, I'm happy they just got an extension done during the season too. Like anything, I was wondering if they were going to get them done. And Brian McFarland notes that those bonuses, the signing bonuses, prorate over 4 years. That it's done during the season instead of 3 for Andrews if it was done during the offseason. So that at least is a plus in this. But I'm just like I talked about the trade deadline. I'm curious about whether there are more moves for Baltimore coming up before the season ends. But for now, this is like peak contract year time for Isaiah Likely, because we saw Nnamdi Madubuike do it. He had a great contract year. He got rewarded with $100 million. I think this is a what have you done for me now lately league. And if he shows up for these last 5 games of the season /playoffs / however far the Ravens go, teams are going to remember that, not what he did in the earlier part of the season.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder with that, Brian McCullough.
Because I was wondering, I'm sorry.
How would you sign this guy in the middle of the season? It's going to cause some tension, but the numbers make absolute sense in that regard. If you're stretching it over 4 years instead of 3, so that's a great thing for the Ravens. Hopefully, Isaiah likely understands that the business side doesn't mean that the Ravens don't value him, and if he wants to get that money, well, he's going to need the ball out, of course. And to your point, Charlie Kolar is a guy who I think the Ravens are very highly regarded for, so I think they'll make a push for him as well. 2 is better than 1, as you mentioned, so it's very good points all around, Kevin, in that regard. Let's touch on the Ravens as they get prepared for the Steelers. Now, the Ravens have practiced. They hadn't, seen any action since that Thursday night loss to the Bengals. On Wednesday, Lamar Jackson usually doesn't practice. He was there practicing, although on a limited basis. Nate Wiggins, a guy who looked like he was having issues walking on that leg, on that ankle, got limited practice as well. So the Ravens are looking healthier. All of their players practice besides Justice Hill, who's on IR currently. So how are you guys feeling? Q, I'll start with you with this Ravens team getting healthy. Lamar Jackson getting some much needed reps after not performing very well on Thursday against those Bengals.
Is Roly Polioli still out there?
Yeah, he is.
Is Voorhees of the Vortex of Death still there?
Yep.
Well, I don't know. I don't really care. Everybody else could be healthy. We saw the few weeks ago when everybody was healthy and still had some issues. Until the offensive line, Ronnie Stanley and company gets mad and say, hey, enough is enough. We're about to impose our will on the opposing team's defensive line, whether we run the ball or pass the ball. I don't care. Like our Darius Washington, that's an awesome thing. That's a really awesome thing. I am super excited for what the possibilities could look like with that. Zach Gore must be just sitting there, scheming up ways of having nickel look and not necessarily having to not fear, but not necessarily stress over a Nate Wiggins because you have some depth and versatility with a veteran player like Ardarius coming back. Okay, Lamar went out there and practiced today. Like my thing is he's been in a funk for going way back to his injury, and then when he got back from his injury, he just has had his struggles. So Derrick Henry, okay, great. We had our dude, KO's boy, Keaton Mitchell. He weaved his way back into the conversation. The only problem is we're not looking like this is a scenario where he's going to get 15 carries, 20 carries, because why? The offensive line. Everything hinges upon whether or not this offensive line will show up. If it shows up, cool. We in there. But if it doesn't show up, I mean, who cares about practice? We're talking about practice. Not a game, not a game. We're talking about practice. So let's show up in the game. Not a game that is just a game. We're talking about a game that is everything on the line, not practice, where there's nothing on the line, practice. Like, who wants to talk about O-linemen in practice or Lamar and other guys healthy in practice? Not a game, but practice? No.
Well, I do think that Lamar, speaking of in the game, I thought Lamar looked better in the Bengals game just health-wise than he did in the Jets game. It looked really sore to me, and, you certainly saw him kind of, almost looked like he was getting up slow and, was kind of limping around a little bit. I thought we saw some of his explosiveness come back in the Bengals game, which I thought we saw like a couple vintage Lamar plays, but again, obviously the performance still was nowhere near good enough for the entire offense. And so, yes, the offensive line is going to continue to be the topic of conversation, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, they don't really have a choice. They really don't have a choice other than win this game, because I don't even want to know what it's going to look like if they lose this game, considering they would lose the early part of the tiebreaker to the Steelers. And, it's another tiebreaker that they'd have to kind of claw their way back from. You have that Cincinnati offense again the next week. that, might have T. Higgins back instead of Tinsley, who was Q's favorite receiver in the NFL right now, is Mitchell Tinsley. So I think at the end of the day, with this Steelers
he's in
game,
my doghouse.
Yeah, he's in the Q doghouse. That's right. So you have it starts with practice, obviously, but at this point in the year, you got to show up during the games. I mean, I agree. So with the Cincinnati game, you have to. It's not a game you can just flush and move on from. Like, I think you seriously, if you're the Ravens, you have to look hard in the mirror at that, learn lessons from it, because some games you can't just say, all right, chalk it up, bad loss, move on, that's it. But I think that there were just so many severe lessons that you have to take away from this one. You can't just totally take it out of sight, out of mind, but at the same time, you kind of do, because you got to move on to Pittsburgh. So interesting stuff ahead for this team, because they need to win in the worst way, as do the Steelers, which makes it such an intriguing game on Sunday.
Very intriguing indeed. In fact, I believe the winner jumps up to 75, 70% chance to win the division, and the loser drops to the low 30s, mid 20s. So it's a huge game for both teams. Hopefully the Ravens are the ones pulling out that victory. Before we take a break, just want to make a note that I see some people in the comments asking what the franchise tag is for tight ends in 2026. It's $15.8 million. So a couple of million more than what the Ravens paid Mark Andrews, and that's what they'll need to do to keep Isaiah Likely in for at least one more year. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll touch more on this Ravens-Steelers game. Not a lot of hype due to the records, but certainly playoff implications abound, as we just mentioned here with this matchup. We'll touch on them more here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't your average picture frame, you can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. Who would you gift this to? Maybe some grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anyone who loves photos, I think would enjoy it a great deal. I for sure will be taking a look at these as the holiday season is here, and my family loves this time of year. They want gifts that are meaningful and sentimental. Aura Frames is right up the alley in regards to that. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code Locked On at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com. Promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners and watchers, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. We are back here, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam Njoku, Kevin Oestreicher, Kadri Ismail, talking Ravens football. Again, we're here twice a week, once on Wednesdays and once after every Ravens game. Sometimes you get us on Mondays or Thursdays, depending on what's going on across the league. But it looks like the Ravens are playing Sundays from here on out up until the postseason. We'll see if the Ravens get there. So expect us here on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And after every Ravens game, next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They hate it. Pittsburgh Steelers, the Ravens fans cannot stand. Huge game for a lot of these guys. A couple of reporters had microphones on Malachi Starks and Q. They mentioned that you're not really a Raven until you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Q, you know that all too well, having defeated the Steelers once in your time. So, of course, you're a Raven. How do you feel about this matchup? Not a lot of hype here, but when it gets down to it, Ravens-Steelers is a huge game for both franchises.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it is crazy as far as the magnitude of this game for both franchises in multiple ways. The little stories, I shouldn't say the little stories, the subplots in it are Aaron Rodgers and whether or not Aaron Rodgers is still going to be that guy and can get them to where they need to be, which is a playoff game and a playoff win. Obviously Mike Tomlin has been around forever, and there are people saying that his time and tenure is up. They need a fresh look, fresh new face, and kind of move on from Mike Tomlin. Obviously, on the Ravens side of things, we know that you got a franchise player, Lamar Jackson, and for 6 seasons now, there's just been this underwhelming play come postseason, and so is it time for Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh to go? Obviously, both guys have, made their stake and claim as far as some of the victories that they've garnered, some of the players that they've garnered. But you lose this game, you're whatever the percentage is and metrics will be for how they're going to advance to the playoffs, like, greatly diminishes. That being said, the rivalry of it all speaks for itself. In other words, the hard hitting, the way in which they have a mutual respect, unlike, say, maybe a Baltimore and Cleveland or Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. This Baltimore and Pittsburgh game, I mean, there's a genuine dislike and, like, man, what's up? Let's go. And smack talk and all that. But yeah, there's a legit, like, all right, cool. We're about to do this in a way in which is, it's telling. It's like, all right, bet, like, we got bragging rights on the line. And it's going to be even cooler for me because myself and my teammates from Super Bowl 35, we're going to be in the building. And obviously I do all my shows with regards to post-game shows and all the like. But this time around, it's going to be me, just celebrating with my teammates and all the fun and awesomeness that will be the Super Bowl 35 reunion, and being introduced at halftime and all that cool stuff. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of goodness in the building, if you will, when it comes to this game. I've seen it where in Pittsburgh too, they've had some celebrations and they've had some of their former Super Bowl winners and teams be introduced at their halftimes as well. And it is something to behold. So this will be really cool that we'll be able to celebrate it, but it'll be kind of an empty celebration if we can't get this dub. So let's get this done.
They need it. They need it. And yeah, I mean, look, two teams that are just looking for answers right now, where we know the struggles that both of these teams has had for sure. And, one of the biggest conversation points for both teams, it's one of the matchups. It's Ravens offense versus Steelers defense. The Steelers defense has not been great this season relative to their expectations. The Ravens offense obviously is underachieved, unfortunately, through last handful of weeks. And so I kind of talked about it last week, and unfortunately it didn't happen this way for Baltimore, but I thought that, that Ravens offense, who had struggled the previous 2 weeks, was like, all right, that Bengals defense, historically bad. Hopefully they can find a way and find their footing, and then you can carry that momentum into the rest of your season. And obviously it went the exact opposite way. So you just gotta start again. Like, just try to do it again. Try to find momentum against the Steelers defense that, they're moving pieces around. They're cutting guys who have been terrible, kind of filtering in new pieces in and out here. So, there are a lot of big storylines, but, I think everybody understands and knows, whether it's the organizations, the fan bases, whoever, that this is a must-win game for either team. And I think it's even more important because with the way the tiebreakers are working out right now, as we've all talked about, it's pretty rare, at least this season, or at least I don't think it's going to be the case, that a second team from this division makes the postseason. So stuff can happen. Obviously, the season's not over yet, but I think the Ravens' path to the postseason, which is not closed, by the way. I see people talking about, all right, they're done. I mean, you got to play the games here. Until the Ravens are eliminated, they're not eliminated here. So their path to the playoffs, to me, is a division. You can be well on your way if you pick up a win here against the Steelers. And honestly, just not have to worry or stress about, like, with that tiebreaker, you already have one win in that category heading into week 18. If you get there, like, obviously you have to be aware of everything that's happening every single game. But to me, there's a lot on the line in this game, but everybody knows
that. Yeah, a lot on the line indeed. And again, no better time to get ready for the postseason than to go up against a team you kind of beat in the postseason as well, but also a team that wants to get in the postseason, wants to keep you away from the postseason. I love the rivalry. It's one of the reasons why I got so heavily involved in football, is because those two teams always go back and forth. We've had players leave the Steelers and come in, and Rod Woodson. We had players leave the Ravens and go to the Steelers. Patrick Queen is one of those guys who didn't practice this Wednesday, dealing with the glute injury. So we'll see what happens in regards to his return. But there's still love lost between these two teams. A lot of people, don't understand it, especially fans and analysts. You have to be a player to really get it. Q understands that. And I think we have another guest here who understands it very well as well. Mr. Nick Moore, welcome to the show, buddy. Big time to be here. Ravens Steelers week. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Sorry, I was a little delayed. I forgot my son wiped my computer last week, so I had to get a bunch of the parts replaced. So I'm on my phone tonight. I forgot I had to update my computer for my camera. So we're here. We're live. We're kicking. So we're doing all right.
Look at that tree in the background, man. I'm loving that. Look at that.
Yeah, that tree's been up for over a month already. So my wife.
There's no way.
Oh, bro, I put those trees up on November 1st.
Pre-Thanksgiving tree?
Bro,
oh, man.
Bro, not just one, 5.
5
trees up already since
I'll
November.
apologize to my wife.
Yeah, my wife goes hard in the paint when it comes to Christmas time.
All right, well, I'll start it off. How are you feeling about this matchup? Obviously not the outcome you wanted against the Bengals, but you get a chance to right the ship against your heated rivalries in the Pittsburgh Steelers, trying to get a chance to get sole possession of first place in the AFC North.
Yeah, feeling pretty good. I mean, I know Thursday night was not good, to say the least. We didn't play well, and we've had a lot of time off to think about kind of how things, what are things we can do better, what are the areas we need to focus on, and what we're going to do as a team moving forward in these last 5 games, because we got 3 division opponents, 4 AFC opponents, and then we have the Green Bay Packers, which is another great football team. So we got 5 really difficult games ahead, and 3 of which are going to be on the road. So it's going to be a tough environment from here on out. And I feel like I've been saying it like a broken record. We've been in fight or flight mode since week 7, after coming off the bye. So, we know where we're at. We know we control our own destinies, which is something that's it's huge in football. That doesn't happen very often. So when we're in a position where, hey, all we got to do is play good. We got to play Ravens football. We got to play smart football, and we got to win football games down the stretch here, and we're going to be just fine and roll into the playoffs as the AFC North division champion. So, we feel good. Obviously, tough week. Steelers Ravens rivalry is such a fierce physical competition. I mean, it's an absolute bloodbath out there. So, it's always fun to get in these games, and we've kind of, players in the past I've talked to, the common theme is careers are made or lost in this environment. I mean, these are the games that people remember, how you played against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, for me personally, we haven't had a ton of success against the Steelers in the 6 years I've been, or the 5 seasons I've played against them. I'm 3-8 over the course of 5 seasons, obviously winning the last 2 last season. That was big for our confidence, but for us, we've had a tough time with them since I've been here. So, we're looking to, continue, got to get back to playing Ravens football, got to, protect the ball, do all the football things that are obvious out there, especially Thursday night when we played the Bengals. So we got to bounce back, and we got to bounce back in a big way.
When you say bounce back, obviously we know that football is unlike any other sport. It's a lot of the preparation when it comes to practices and such, the energy in the locker room. Can you talk about how do you see the guys feeling as far as the preparation and just the mental mindset of the locker room energy?
No, I think the guys are still, like, the focus is still there. Obviously, we didn't play well last week, but as bad as we played, we're still, ahead in the division right now. So we're sitting on top, and we feel, that gives us a little bit of confidence, gives us a lot of confidence, honestly, in the situation that we're in, knowing that, hey, we haven't even played our best football yet. We've made a ton of mistakes. We've played some sloppy football at times. We played some pretty good football here and there, but as a whole, I feel like we haven't put all 3 phases together in one game. And for that being said, for us to be in the position that we're in, where we control our destiny, knowing that we haven't done the things that we needed to do, but we've done just enough. It's like, all right, boys, we got 5 games left. It's time to strap it in. It's time to lock in. Obviously the intensity is amped up this week because of the opponent we're going up against, but also every game is so crucial. I mean, they say, people remember what you do in December, and we have to continue, we have to play our best football right now. And if we want to do the things that we set out to do back in August, win the division, make the playoffs, make a run. Now is the time. We talked about it for what are we in week 13 or 14 now? We've
14.
talked about it for 3.5 months or just over 3 months. Like, it's time to go. We got to strap it up. We got to get going. So I think the urgency is there across the board. And I'm I am optimistic about where we're going. And I feel like that the team is moving in the direction it needs to move into. Coming off a tough loss, I felt like practice today was great. And I felt like the meetings have been great and very positive and very honest and, very like, hey, we're still here, boys. Like, the world's not falling down. We're 6-6. We don't want to be 6-6, but we're still in first place in our division. So let's get it together. Let's play football that we know we're capable of playing, and let's do the things that we know we can do. And we're going to be in the spot we want to be come January.
Moving away from the game a little bit, I know that one of your teammates just got an extension. We've talked about it already a little here on the show, but I want to get your opinion on that. I think we'll head into the break, and then we'll talk about Andrews. Is that a plan?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All
we'll
right,
take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get your thoughts and want to hear it about the Mark Andrews extension here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Back in the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, Sam Njoku, Kevin O, Q, and Nick Moore joining us here on the show. And get to Kevin's question now. How do you feel about the contract extension? Mark Andrews, one of the leaders in the locker room, getting another 3 years here in the city of Baltimore.
This is the first I've heard about it. So
okay.
Well,
breaking news for Nick Moore. Yeah,
no
Mark
idea.
Andrews is sticking around 3 years, $39.3 million.
Wow.
He's
Good for
staying
him.
in Baltimore. So, what is your instant reaction to the news, Nick?
My first thought is he's had a heck of a weekend. He got engaged over the weekend and over the bye time, and now he gets a contract extension. Man, good for him, dude. I've said this over and over and over again. That guy's been the stable for our team. He's been he's been the rock. He's been the go-to guy for Lamar. He's just such a leader. He's such a great football player. He makes plays. We've seen him do a lot of stuff this year. I feel like this season and last season is very similar. At the beginning of the year, people were like, where's Mark Andrews? He's not doing this. He's not scoring touchdowns. Boom. All this stuff. And then all of a sudden, boom, he goes on a tear and he scores like 10 touchdowns in I don't know how many games. But I feel like every week he's scoring touchdowns, doing what Mark Andrews always does. And I think he deserves it. He's put in the work. He's had the success on the field. He does the stuff in the locker room. He does the stuff off the field. What you want in a guy who's now become outside of Lamar, the franchise player, him and some of these other guys that have been here for a long time that have gotten multiple contracts. So I'm thrilled to have him. I know he's a great player. And he's a great teammate, and he's huge for the Ravens. So he's going to be. I look forward to seeing a lot of success from him down the road.
Yeah, what are you looking forward, not just from Mark, but from that entire I mean, there's a lot of talent in that room, obviously, with Isaiah and Charlie and whatnot. We know that, before this extension, all three of those guys were scheduled to be free agents, and likely and Kohler still are. So in that room, we saw outside of the fumble from likely him have his best game of the season against Cincinnati, and obviously that fumble's a low moment, but we started to see some of those flashes from him, and obviously Charlie's really stepped up this season. So, what are you looking forward to from that entire group as we kind of head down the stretch?
I still think that they're just some of the most versatile players we have on our team. Obviously Charlie's the run blocking, he's the downhill threat, but as we've seen over the course of these last 6 or 8 games, the dude can make plays with the ball in his hands. He's got, he doesn't say he has a whole bunch of yak, but he had a nice yak a couple weeks ago. I think it was in Minnesota. He's there. He made a couple plays on Thursday night. Like, he finds ways to get open. He finds ways to help in the pass game. And then he's a core player on our special teams unit. Absolute stud on all 4 phases. That guy does so much for this team. He puts in the most yards every single week in practice. With the catapult system, he's got the most yards in the games. He's playing nonstop. He's doing everything he's asked to do. He's a guy that he's like the guy you want in your locker room. He's selfless. He does it. He never questions it. Sometimes he has his way of doing things, but he's a great teammate. He's a great player. He's a great leader, and he's really coming into his own this 4th year. I feel, he's really stepped up and done. He's been asked to do a lot with Isaiah being out early in the season, and then Pat also being out. So he was kind of asked to fill a bunch of roles that he hadn't done in the past. And I felt like he's done a great job so far and this whole season. And I like to see him continue to do that same stuff. And that guy is, having played with Nick Boyle for 2 or 3 years, Charlie reminds me a lot of Nick. He's got the physicality in the blocking. He's got the versatility in the catching game. He's got, the special teams ability. Like, he's the guy that we need to anchor, because those tight ends, that he's being asked to do a lot because our other tight ends are so dynamic on offense that they don't do the special team stuff that he's being asked to do. Where a lot of teams you see, unless you're, Travis Kelce or George Kittle, you're playing special teams. And for us, we have 2 of those guys in Isaiah and Mark. And so Charlie has to kind of step up and do a lot of stuff on special teams, because the other 2 guys are too valuable on the offensive side. And so he's done a fantastic job. And I think he's going to be a hell of a player for a long time. And Isaiah, I think he's arguably the most dynamic, one of the most dynamic tight ends we've seen. I think the stuff that he can do when he gets the ball in his hands, obviously the fumble he had on Thursday night, he's beating himself up about it, because he knows if he just keeps running and tucks it, he's going to score. And that's a mistake that you don't see from him very often. And the stuff that he can do in the passing game and being able to get open, get the ball in his hands, we've seen him make tons of plays down the field with yards after catch. He's just such an elusive player, and he's so much fun to watch, because he can make catches that, like, how is that guy that big being able to do that kind of stuff? And he's just a special talent. And so, between him and Mark, it's like it's a double-edged sword. Either one of those guys, you can't really say, hey, we're going to shut down Mark. Well, it's all right, we're going to get 80 the ball. And it's like, okay, we're going to shut 80 down. Well, 89's right there to make plays too. So they just complement each other so well. And it's hard to spread the ball around, just because we have so many dynamic players with Derrick and Lamar and Zay and Mark and Isaiah and Bate and D-Hop and all these guys, that there's only so many touches that are allowed every game. And so Isaiah, he missed a couple games early in the season, I would say he hasn't had the production that he would have liked or expected to have this season, but he's another good, he's another guy. He's a great locker room guy, vibes really well with Lamar, does great stuff with Zay in the offense. I think he's a dynamic player, and I hope that they continue to work him in, as we saw last week, because he is so versatile and can do so many different things. And he's a tight end, but he plays as well as a lot of these slot receivers we see in the NFL. So he's a special talent, and I hope they continue to boost him up and start feeding him the rock a little bit.
It's funny with the way the Steelers have been playing, and you're talking about, just getting guys opportunities. That's one of the areas where I would think would be a weakness of theirs, is their linebacking core and their inability to really cover tight ends. And I think that if there was ever games where you can kind of reestablish yourself, whether you're Isaiah with the fumble, trying to put that in the rearview mirror, kind of get your footing and your confidence back and your swagger back. Obviously, Mark and Charlie, just being a force in the middle to even help out Lamar, because of the way in which, just the numbers and the way things have looked for the past, month or so with the way he's played. This would be a great game for that unit to really break out and show up for Lamar and the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Lamar has done really well over the course of my time with him is, you look at a guy who, he had the fumble, Isaiah had the fumble in the end zone, ultimately cost us getting points. I've seen Lamar over the years, like, we look at what happened with Mark in Buffalo and some other guys in the past, he's going to get the rock. Like, Lamar's thing, he wants everybody to be confident and be, hey, I still trust you. You made a mistake, but that's part of the game. And we're going to continue to feed the rock, and we're going to show you. So I look for Lamar to kind of do that for Zay, give him those opportunities so that Isaiah can get that confidence back. And you're right. I mean, this game is, I'm not taking any. The Steelers are still the Steelers on defense. They got multiple Hall of Famers running around there. They're still some of the most electric pass rushers we've seen. The front 4 guys are unbelievable. PQ is the fan. He's one of the better cover corners in the league. I don't, obviously we don't know his situation, whether or not he's going to be up, but he can still cover just about anybody. Especially a tight end. He covers as well as anybody on a tight end like that. So, and then they got some great players in the secondary. And so I would think that, Lamar's going to do what Lamar Jackson does. I don't know. I don't know how to describe what he does, but he's also in the same situation. He's got to build his confidence. He's got to have, work with Monk, get the ball moving. We got to, do the stuff that I feel like is so obvious. We got to run the ball better. We got to protect better. We got to do all this and that. And it's like, we also got to get everybody the ball, and it's just a hard thing to do. And I think Lamar is the guy to handle that. That's the guy you want in the driver's seat in any situation. And I know he's upset with how he played on Thursday night, but he's still Lamar Jackson. He's still the best quarterback in the game, I think. And he's still the most electric playmaker there is in the game. And so I look for him to do that stuff coming out in the biggest game of the season for us, huge rivalry against the Steelers. He's going to make plays, and that's just what he does. And we need him to. Like, we go as he goes, and he knows that, and that's just part of the system. And I think he's going to continue to work those guys in, share the love with everybody, get everybody's confidence up. And I think we're going to be, I feel really good about how the offense is going to play. I know they haven't had the success that people want them to have because they're not throwing for 4,000 and rushing for 2,000 and doing all the crazy stuff that we've done the last 2 seasons. But this is NFL. This is hard, man. It's really difficult to play in this league. And the more you're in the league, the more people understand your tendencies. They start to figure you out. And so it's about mixing things up, changing personnel, changing play style, changing this, that, whatever, to make yourself better. You got to constantly get better and continue to work on your craft each and every day. And we're still there. We got 5 games left, and I'm confident that this is the best unit we've had. Now it's just put it out there and get everybody rolling together, working as one, and continuing to show that dominant offense that we have.
I'm excited. You got me amped up and feel like the Ravens got a shot now, to run the table. Dude, that's what I like to hear.
We're never out of it, man. When you got number 8.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
You're still in it. What about our Darius Washington, Tavius Robinson, 2 guys that have come back recently? I'm sure you've been looking at them as they, rehab, get set to go. I'm sure when I was in the castle watching you guys practice, I always see, guys in the sideline working hard to get back at it. So it's nice to see both of those guys back to practice. I'm sure you guys are jubilated to have both of those guys back in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, I have a special place in my heart for AD. Having gone through the same thing, and Q can attest. It's not an easy thing to do to come back from an Achilles, especially as a skill player. It's very hard to do. It takes a mental toll on you. Obviously, it takes a physical toll on your body. And to see him back out there moving around, I've been watching him run, for weeks now. He's been running for a long time, and I'm just so excited for him that he's finally moving on. He's got his window open. He's ready to rock and roll. He feels good. I've talked to him, extensively throughout the process, and I've been in that situation, and I know how it feels. So I'm just happy to see him out there moving around, enjoying it, because that man loves football. He's a game changer for us. He's made himself into a everyday player for us, every down starter on defense. And, I just hope to see him get back to that, because he's so important for our team, and he could be such a useful piece for us as we go down the stretch. And then T-Rob, man, T-Rob, that guy, we need him. We have, we've been hurting on the edges all year since we lost him, and we've had some injuries up front. And then obviously they brought in Draymond, who's been a huge help for us. But T-Rob's a game changer, man. He plays on special teams. He plays field goal. He plays field goal block. He plays on kickoff return. He does a lot of different stuff that you don't see from regular big players, because it's hard to do. I mean, getting big guys out in space and playing on special teams is very difficult to do. And also being a game wrecker, being able to make plays in the backfield, be stout on the line of scrimmage. He's a great player for us. He's young. He's got a lot of talent. I think he's going to continue to be a force for us. And I hope, he's confident where he's at. He's obviously comfortable. He's been running around doing his stuff. I ask him all the time when I see him, how you doing? Checking in, because Hugh knows that every injury is a mental deal, and you have to constantly, get a gauge on where they are mentally. You want to let them know that they're not alone. Like, we're still here. You're still one of us. You're still our brother. We want you to be healthy. We want you to be happy. We want you to be confident, and we want you to be back on the field. So we're here for you. We can do anything we can to help you. And I think both those guys have done a fantastic job throughout the rehab process, and they both feel really good after having talked to them. And I think that they're ready to play. I know they're foaming. AD's foaming at the mouth to get in. He was looking to have a big year, and then T-Rob's foaming at the mouth to get back. So we need them down the stretch. We're going to need both those guys. So I'm excited for them.
I love it. I love to hear it. Well, again, Nick, appreciate you for joining us. Hopefully, special teams, offense, defense, they all come together and get a big-time victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers and take sole possession of first place in the AFC North. So, Nick, appreciate you for joining us, man.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Now that we're going to say goodbye, guys, get ready for the rest of the season. Pittsburgh Steelers, Ravens. That's going to be a huge matchup. Again, on Sunday, we'll be live after the game talking about it. Hopefully, the Ravens get the job done. Wait, Nick is talking now. It's a guarantee. So I'm feeling pretty confident about it, Nick.
Never.
No guarantees in it. Okay. I'll give you some leeway. No guarantee, but I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm sure Ravens fans are too. So for myself, Kevin O, Q, and Nick, I appreciate you guys so much for joining us here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. And we will see you on Sunday.